The following audio may contain the personal testimonials of some OPTAVIA coaches or clients of OPTAVIA. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the OPTAVIA team.
Welcome everybody to tonight's Habits of Health call. I want to wait a little bit for the chat to start filling up, and it's filling up pretty quick, so we can get started right away. Really excited to be here. It's been an honor to be asked to do this tonight, and really because I'm really passionate about the subject tonight because as we enter in. So we'll give it a little bit for it to populate, and we'll get going. If you want to tell us where you're from in the chat, how you're excited, and how you're enjoying these Habits of Health calls. Just love to hear your comments and everything. We're going to be just kind of talking back and forth, and you use the chat, I'll use my voice, and we have a couple of great guests on tonight as well to add to tonight's offering. And so we'll get started here when we hit close to 1,500 or so we get everything in. Wow, look how fast that chat's going. That's pretty awesome. Love watching that. Okay, we're hitting 1,500. They're still coming in, rolling in, but we'll get started. We talked about last week, we had Charlene on element 4 talking about building a healthy mindset. And tonight we're on element 5. I really love this element, which is building and optimizing your surroundings, taking that healthy mindset and figuring out who's in your culture, who's on your team, who's getting excited about what you're doing, and finding those things and developing your community and your microenvironment of health. And I wanted to start off because my story kind of started here. I really didn't come to OPTAVIA for weight loss. I came for a healthy mind because my life had left me feeling a little bit unfulfilled. For one thing, I did have a strong desire and a high value to really provide for my family. But that left me in a predicament after years, and it wasn't getting any better. It was actually getting worse. That I was unfulfilled. I wasn't happy. I literally felt like I was swimming around in toxic waste. And I didn't work for a nuclear plant or anything. I would just work for this company. And what I found was a lot of negative energy that was around that. That toxicity that I talked about was the environment that I worked in. It was some of the people, some of the relationships. Just my thoughts started getting more toxic, and I become very aware of that. And then the waste part was I felt like in that kind of environment I was wasting my time, my energy. I was really wasting my life. So I was really kind of got into looking for something that could fulfill me and something of meaning and purpose. And I really found it with OPTAVIA. And that was really one of the turning points of my life, and one of the major turning points, and one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So how I did that, we basically were looking for like-minded people, and we surrounded ourselves. There were people already involved and on that journey. We had this beautiful place to go and grow. And so basically what helped me do that was, we'll try to go to share here. Where's my share? Okay, we'll bring this up. Can you see this?
Not yet. Hey, for those of you that have just arrived into the webinar, we'd love to see in the chat feature what OPTAVIA has meant for you. If you had an experience with OPTAVIA and the Habits of Health program, put in the chat what's been your biggest takeaway from the program, whether it's been weight loss, whether it's been healthy lifestyle, anything that you've seen as an experience to your health and improvement. We'd love to see it in the chat for those people that are just checking this out for the first time, or maybe they're brand new to OPTAVIA.
Okay, so we're good now. Lost my share button there for a second. Okay, so getting back to it, thanks Dave for stepping in there. We're having some technical difficulties. And so anyway, what we found was the Habits of Health transformational system and the community and culture. And one of the things that was really beautiful about this is basically when you kind of leave things in the past and you're really in a mindset of really creating something for yourself, you have to discard a few things and you have to bring a few things on. And this Habits of Health system was critical part of that happening for myself and for many others as well. And we've been want to kind of speak to this because we want to hit this hard. If you haven't got a Habits of Health system, I highly encourage you, because it's been advanced and it's been restructured and it's been improved. And we've had some things that have been added to it, which is basically the Habits of Health is the educational piece. Then we have the app, which is the accountability piece and your daily reminders. And the LifeBook is the elements, and we're going through them right now. And that's one of the most exciting things that I love, because when you make it personal about your life and you're journaling, you're really starting to understand what it takes to create that environment and create health and really create anything in your life. Once you go through this process, whatever you're successful at, if your weight loss journey is the first thing you're going after, once you understand how to do that correctly, you can apply this in any aspect of your life. So it's really awesome. And then we have the Habits of Health website, which is full of information valuable to each and every individual. So in this element 5, we're going to look at your surroundings and see how we can recruit people, we can modify the places and change the things that touch our world. And that's a really powerful thing, discovering how to create a microenvironment of healthy relationships. Relationships are key. If we can get that straightened out, everything will fall into place. And we can provide you with the tools, resources, and tips that will help you improve your relationships. And last of all, we'll examine the value of community and surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And that's key as well, because if we're if we're not with like-minded people, we're probably with the wrong people. And so I love this quote Dr. Anderson has in the book. Your goal is to create a microenvironment of health, a protective bubble to shield you against obesogenic forces, not just obesogenic, but even any negative forces, and nurture your growth and transformation. It's really key to your success, and it's a beautiful thing when we can do that. So OPTAVIA really provides a fertile soil for you to plant your seed of transformation in, and it will support you through that whole process. And how we do that, often one of the things we do is we stay above the line. It's one of our hot 6. We stay above the line when everything we do, because when you're above the line, you're open, you're curious, and you have a growth mindset. When you're below the line, it's really one of those things where you're closed off, you're not open. You don't know what you don't know, but you really don't want to know, type of thing. And really, I like to put it as, and when you're above the line, you're powerful, and when you're below the line, you're powerless. Because the things that you say, which are like blame, shame, and justification, are some of the things you'll do below the line. And that's actually giving your power over to somebody else. Somebody else controls your outcome. And when you're above the line, you're taking responsibility. And that's a good place to be, because when you take 100% responsibility, it all falls on you and you make those choices. So give a 1 in the chat if you love that one, because staying above the line is key to having a positive attitude and a positive outcome in your life. And one of the things that takes us below the line is when Dr. A talks about in the book is a hot or go system or a cool or no system. Well, hot is basically your emotional response, your reactive thing. And I think that most people operate on this level, that they don't think about it, they react to it, they're emotionally driven. And then they wonder why their life is messed up and full of drama. And what Dr. A is asking you to do is take a sip of water, take a drink before you think, or if you need to take a time to think and make a good choice. I like to think that this is your emotional mismanagement defense system, is the cool or no, is that you're playing a mini chess game inside your head anytime somebody is activating that hot button. And usually we have that hot button for a multitude of reasons. It was actually programmed into us by lifestyle and modeling. But usually it's stress activated. We all have a lot of stress in our lives, and really, wouldn't you like to be surrounded by people who are on this level of creating a healthy reaction to life, to limit stress, to stop, challenge, and choose, and move towards a healthier and better outcome in every one of their relationships? And just asking yourself to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I like this one because really it is another way, and it's a fun way to say stop, challenge, and choose before you act out and do something that you'll be regretting a little bit later. Is really checking into when you feel that feeling of emotion, stopping for a second, challenging whether that person or that that situation will be improved by your next response, what's about to come out of your mouth, or it will be less than because of that response. And once you basically, a relationship is like a fine vase. If you crack it, the integrity is gone forever. And it's really hard. You can't repair it. You can glue it back together, but it will never be the same. So it's really important that we get this one under control. So really check yourself before you wreck yourself is one of those things. So that we really want to get really good at, and stop, challenge, and choose is a big part of that. One of the other things is, and I love these 4 questions because this takes you out of drama. When you're having those emotional responses, when you're about ready to react to something or things aren't going the way you want them to, just stop and ask yourself these questions. What is happening here? Do you like it or don't you like it? What did I want to have happen here? And then what was missing that I could have done or shouldn't have done to make for a better outcome? And either you can work to improve that situation immediately, or you'll know better what to do next time. So moving forward and what's next. So these 4 questions are very valuable. And all these things I like to use as I see them play out here, above the line, below the line, the 4 important questions. We'll talk about a few other things, but they're like little programs you put inside your brain. And I don't know who else thinks like that. I don't know if I'm the only one or not. I put a 1 in the chat if you think like that. You like these little programs. So when you find yourself in an emotional situation or a situation that pops into your head, and you go through that process and you have a better outcome, and you like that and you want more of that, and you do more of that, and then pretty soon you're going to be attracting, not only improving and becoming that person you want to become, but you're attracting those people as well. People will notice the difference in you and how you respond to the world and how they're responding, and they want more of it. And then you can add them to your community, to the people that surround you, and that's a good thing. And that just supports your overall outcome. So we want to improve our relationships, but so one of the things we want to do is find out who's in your amen corner, who's championing, who's clapping for you when you're winning. And then there's also who's your accomplices, who are your saboteurs that kind of, who's that crab in the pot that's pulling you back into that boiling water because they don't want to see you, because they're not ready to do anything about it. They don't want to see you winning either. And then we'll talk about maybe reading the book Necessary Endings, which is really not an ending to a relationship, but really a renegotiation. So you talk about, does this person support my healthy outcome? What do I want to create? The life I want to lead? Do they fit into the environment that I want to create for myself? And they have, you can renegotiate on how they can stay in, or renegotiate how much time you spend with them, and under what circumstances to protect yourself and your environment. So having like-minded people around you is very powerful, and it's a huge motivator to keep you going. And in this one, 4 stages of learning, most of us, how many of you feel like you're unconscious and incompetent when it comes to building your microenvironment of health? We'll use that as an example today. Well, we're becoming conscious right now by talking about it and why it's so important. So we're going from unconscious to conscious, and then, okay, I'm conscious and competent. Now I know I'm not good at this. What do I do now? Well, it's working with your support team, reading books and getting the support you need from your coaches and your support team, and and then your self-help stuff you can do on your own. But then we can move into conscious competent, where we have to think about all the time, stop challenging and choosing and stopping ourselves and feeling those emotions and doing the steps. And we have to be really mindful about it at first. But over time, and with practice, we can become unconscious competence, which means it's a natural reaction now. We've done it for so long and done it so well for so long that we now can do it without even thinking about it. And that's what we're going to go to. Don't expect to do that overnight because it won't happen. It's something of mastery that usually takes 10,000 hours to get really good at it. But on your journey, you will improve the person who you are and the person you're attracting, because your microenvironment health is getting so untoxified. We'll use that. I don't think that's even a word, but you're taking the toxicity out of your life, and people are going to be really attracted to that pureness of your and the love and everything that you have in that environment that you want to create, because it's your environment. You get to create what you want. And and the result is people are going to be attracted to it and they'll love it. So just think about some of those things that also what pulls you away from it. Those things that pull you off, throw you off of that. What pulls you back into the pot? What takes you off your game? What draws you back into the drama triangle? Those are things that we have to be aware of until we reach mastery. That as you're out and about and you feel a situation arising, you falling into old habits and you're not liking the way you're showing up. What are those things? What triggers it? Was it stress? Maybe we need to work on less stress in our life. So, and how to create a better situation moving forward. Like, is going to the airport stressful for you? Well, how about leaving an hour early, getting a lounge pass or something at your local air flight and hanging out and just working and casually go to your flight where you don't have to worry about getting through security or traffic. You're eliminating that stress and you will show up better because of it. And those are just little things that we can do to improve that situation. So I'm going to kind of end here for a little bit. I want to go off onto speaker view, and I want to bring on a friend of mine, Rhonda Lorenzen, who's going to share. I shared kind of with my healthy mind and my surroundings and what came available to do that, what I had to do. And Rhonda's going to share about her healthy body, healthy environment that she created for herself and why that was important. Rhonda.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for this invitation. Really, really nice to be here. Everybody, I'm 51 years old, and for 3 decades of my life, I struggled with obesity. I had a negative internal dialogue that told me that I'd lost and gained weight before, and it would probably happen again. I never got myself to a healthy weight, and I just allowed this negativity to kind of play in my mind. When I found this program, I didn't know that it was going to be any different. And after about a week on program, I discovered that it was really something quite different. I decided to remove some key triggers from my household, like any of the foods that would trip me up. I only brought in single serve portions of nuts that I could have as a snack. I didn't bring in a whole bag. I couldn't trust myself. At work, I removed the candy dish from the table, and I made myself have a safer environment around me. At social events, I decided that I would be the person, instead of researching and bringing the most decadent dessert possible, I would bring the biggest, most gorgeous salad possible with all the healthy toppings that I could have. And at work, I decided that I would use the stop, challenge, choose technique every time I was walking to the break room, anticipating that there was going to be something in there, because inevitably there always was. And having that tool in my pocket helped me protect myself. After 1 week on program, I had such amazing results. I recognized that this was different, and I had a solution. And I knew a lot of people who were like me, who were stuck. And when you find something that changes things for you, you have to tell them. And I began helping other people. My husband was one of those people that I helped. And I began to, David talked about this protective bubble, this group that you surround yourself with. My husband got healthy. He helped his son, my bonus son, Trey, lose half his body weight and gain a whole new life. My mother-in-law, friends and family, and all of a sudden we had this community around us who's behaving like us. There's so much purpose that I recognized where before I was bored and would spend my evenings watching reality TV and having mindless snacks. Now I had purpose from helping other people, and helping other people was helping me. In the end, I've lost 110 pounds, but really what I've gained is an entirely new life. I'm confident, I'm happy, and most of all, I don't have any concern that I'll ever regain this weight again, because it's not about the weight, it's about the life I have now. And I have everything that I need to keep me right where I'm at, and so do you. You've got tools. You've got this LifeBook. Oh my gosh, what a treasure. And Dr. A's Habits of Health system. You've got a coach, the same things I have. And with habit change and community and accountability that I have from helping other people, I know that now this is a lifestyle. I never knew there was such a thing as a lifestyle. I thought a lifestyle was just something that lucky people got. And I am so grateful for Dr. A, for everybody in OPTAVIA, and this opportunity to share tonight. I wanted to leave you with an inspirational quote, but the thing that popped out to me just made me laugh, and that's this: it's okay to be a glow stick. Sometimes we have to break before we shine. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you. That was a perfect analogy of what it takes to create that micro habit and what can happen from that. I was seeing, looking at the chats and stuff, and people, there's little things just, as I look at them, as so remedial, but so big, for such a huge leap for these people to understand that they have the control over these things and how they respond to it. And my hope for everybody on this call tonight, on this Zoom, is that you take one of these things that you wrote down in the chat that really trips you up, and you utilize your support team, you utilize the community and the information in the life books and everything else. I mean, it's so powerful. All you need is one win to break the code. One win. So pick out that one thing that triggers you in this area and go to work on it. Work for a better result. It can get highly contagious. So I'm going to end right there and bring on our next guest, because we've had a lot of discussions about this next subject, and I love the transformation he's made for himself and how he's done that, which is around the healthy finances part. And so Harold, why don't you come on and share with people your story?
What's up, David? And Rhonda, thank you for sharing. I love that story. Mine's, I think all of ours is pretty similar if we follow the habits of health system. It just affects us differently in certain areas of our life. And as David alluded to, mine was finances. And David and I have had many of conversations around this subject, as he patiently offered advice and helped me work through this. And also, worked through outside sources as well, and dove into the mentorship of OPTAVIA and just trusted the process. But I think it really, David, it got to the point to where I was to that point to where 2 a.m. Tom was showing up way too much. And those of you who don't know who 2 a.m. Tom is, it's top of mind. And it's what would wake me up at 2 a.m, it seemed to be, right before I had to get up to start my day, with just that anxiousness, that anxiety, that crunching numbers. How was I going to do this? How was I going to achieve that? How was I not going to tell this person no? And it just really was debilitating in my thoughts and my actions. It had me really acting in a sense of urgency too, because I was always chasing a number. I'd always set this arbitrary number that represented security. But it was like that number always continued to move. Every time I'd get close to catching it, it would move because of some unforeseen circumstance would happen, something would break, something unforeseen. And I realized that a lot of the way that I was thinking, to what David alluded to earlier, not to blame, but it was a lot due to my conditioning from outside influences, via it be radio, via it be television shows, mother, father, teacher, preacher. All of that, was instilling some stinking thinking, if you will, into my mind. And it was creating just a mindset of scarcity. So I did at the time start to limit my association with certain people. I just had to, while I was building a mindset of abundance. I had to build that armor of abundance. And in the meantime, I had to limit those associations. And I'll be honest, as I began to reintroduce some of those relationships, some of them lasted and some of them didn't. But I'm okay with that. And I'm very grateful for where we are and who I've developed to become. And it all started with trusting that process and that mentorship. But I think the biggest paradigm shift for me was becoming content for where we were. Because we were always looking to the future for some sort of false fulfillment. That was that security. That was that arbitrary little number we kept setting that would represent security. And it was just false. So I told Sam, and I can remember about 3 years ago saying, Sam, when we become content for where we are on a Friday night, eating a ham sandwich and having our love and our health, everything will come to us. We'll be trusted with more. Right? Because we'll stop to act out of urgency, because how you act is what you'll attract. So when we acted out of scarcity, trying to hold on to not losing what we had and never gaining what we wanted. So we began to act out of abundance, and we began to attract abundance. And it's an amazing thing whenever you fix this mind right here, and you begin to play above the line, and you begin to put into action all of what element 5 talks about. And I'll end with this, and it's pretty amazing. I actually messaged Terry a few days ago about this, because we kind of play about my healthy finance evolution. And I had something break. It was a water pump. We went without water for 3 days just recently. And in the past, just to offer some contrast, that would have been a catastrophic event. It would have really set me back mentally, potentially physically. But this time, it was just an inconvenience. It was a life situation that I dealt with, and I moved on. That's all I got, David.
Well, that was beautiful, because that was super powerful, because what you're setting an example of is you're starting to master that thing that eluded you before. And it only became because you opened yourself up to mentorship. And one of the things I've always said since I was a little kid, somebody told me, and I can't even remember who it was, I wish I could give them credit, but they said, don't take advice from somebody you wouldn't trade places with. And that's what we do, is basically, if somebody has something that we want, I want to know how they achieved it. It's not just, there's a lot of ways to create wealth and stuff and not do it well, but there's also a lot of ways you can do it well. How to manage your money is one of those things that you want to, when somebody comes from abundance, not greed or protecting what they have and just accumulating it, is not somebody I want to trade places with, but somebody that lives in abundance and is free to share what they have and teaches other people how to do it. We have this great thing called OPTAVIA that we can not only help them with their finances, we can help them create it, which is a beautiful thing. And so that's the beautiful thing about what we have to share. So I do want to go back to a couple of these slides here and double click on that and move into this and ask ourselves a couple of questions here before we leave, which is, what does this element mean to you right now? You guys getting used to this theme? What does this element give you the opportunity to reflect on? And what actions are you going to take as a result of this element? So basically, if you want, start loading up the chat with a few things that you're going to think about, because really we can walk away this with a feel-good experience, or we can utilize this thing to do some journaling, to focus on that one thing we want to work on and make a big difference in our lives and start making a big difference in other people's life, because you will be the person other people want to trade places with. And that would be a beautiful thing. And I think anybody that's attracted to OPTAVIA would like that. We also have your LifeBook elements. If you want to relive some of these on Facebook, 1, 2, and 3, I think are on there already. But we also have these elements that Dr. A has done, and you can go through there and send these to people who you think they can benefit from. And I hope you guys join us next week, because we have element 6 coming your way. And if they're as good as a lot of these ones we've had in the past, you're gonna love this. So anyway, thank you for coming on, enjoying the Habits of Health call tonight, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
This audio may have contained the personal testimonials of some OPTAVIA coaches or clients of OPTAVIA. The results relayed in these messages are based on the unique experiences of the participants, and we cannot guarantee like or similar outcomes. While you may be inspired by these accounts, please note that any stories of success have not been verified and your individual path to optimal health will vary. As always, it is our recommendation that you consult with a healthcare provider before starting a weight loss program. Yours in health, the OPTAVIA team.